Hello and welcome to Cujo Productions Creepypasta-Thon 2016. Holy crap, time just flies. As always, I'm Justin Crumley and I will be taking you through all 31 days, all 31 reviews. And today we kick off this Creepypasta-Thon with Cove, a very famous creepypasta that I'm sure a lot of people know of and I'm sure needs no introduction. The basic gist of this story is that there's some people in an online chat room. You remember those? Yeah, basically before Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff, whatever. And they're basically a bunch of adults who are reminiscing about an old show they used to watch called Cove. Now, the show is apparently about a little girl who is friends with some freaky looking pirates and some very colorful looking characters. Ones you're looking at on the screen, I'm sure, qualify. Throughout this entire story, there's a constant mention of something called the Skin Taker, which just in it itself kind of throws some very disturbing imagery in your head. And they talk more about it, saying that this thing was probably the freakiest character in the entire show. And they also discuss that the show in itself was very disturbing, even for a children's show. There's many instances, even in real life, where you look at old TV shows like Courage the Cowardly Dog or Are You Afraid of the Dark, even Goosebumps. I mean, for kid shows, you watch them now and you remember how scary they were as kids, but how tame they are compared now, except for Courage the Cowardly Dog. I'll get to that in a second. So I think that's the appeal with this kind of story, is that it's a very realistic kind of take on how we perceive old cartoons and TV shows we used to watch as kids. And at the end of it, they also talk about how the show may or may not have existed. Basically, there's this thing where, one of them asks their parents if they remember that show, and the parent responds with, "Yeah, you would always turn on the TV and there'd be nothing but static." That's a pretty disturbing concept, that this show may or may not have existed. And it leaves you thinking, were these kids insane? Or did this show exist, but only viewable towards kids? It's a very open story, which I really like. I like stories with open interpretation. It makes for better conversation, in my opinion. Now, I mentioned earlier that this has a bit of a realistic tone in the sense that we watch cartoons and TV shows, and I mentioned Courage the Cowardly Dog, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, shows that we watched as children, and Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, maybe a little tame, but pretty scary when we were kids. Courage the Cowardly Dog, I said I would cover, and I'm going to do that. When you go back and watch a lot of that, it's pretty disturbing, and I think it gets even worse when you get older. Worse meaning, I think it gets scarier because you're older and you're a lot smarter, and it just, yeah, a lot of the imagery is a lot more disturbing than you remember. Cove is a very interesting creepypasta that I definitely recommend you check out. As I said, it has a very open interpretation, meaning this show that these people are talking about may or may not have existed. Very interesting, very well written, highly recommended. Check it out.